G'day guys, welcome to the Purebred Reds Adelaide United Fan TV. Ellis Gelios reporting live after the 1-1 draw to Melbourne City tonight. To me, it's two big points dropped. I don't see this as being a point on the road achieved, like what we're seeing a lot of people say on social media. This game was really one that we should have closed out. We ended up going 1-0 up, obviously, after what was a very, very, very scrappy first 25 minutes. Both teams giving the ball away a lot. Some pretty poor first touches. Probably the worst I've seen from two teams in the A-League this season. Particularly us, just a lot of just trying to overplay and getting nowhere really. But then we saw a rare moment of absolute quality from Nicky Miliuznic. He's just backed himself, worked his way into a bit of space and crossed a delightful ball. Found the head of who else other than Craig Goodwin, Mr. Consistent, unlike a lot of our other players at the moment. The ball bulges into the corner of the goal and then comes back out. Linesman, luckily for us, did wave his flag to signal that it had gone over the line, and thus we did go 1-0 up and looked pretty comfortable all throughout the entire rest of the first half. A turning point in the game was probably Nikola Miliuznic going off injured, I have to admit. That did change the entire course of the game. We just seemed to have our momentum stifled. Kiddo couldn't really replicate what Miliuznic was doing for us on the counter throughout the entire first half. But there's two main topics that I want to discuss, and I'd love you guys to comment with what your thoughts are. But firstly, for me, I want to know what Adelaide United's goalkeeping coach Frank Urich does with Paul Izzo from Monday to Friday in training, because his kicking has not improved since day dot, and it's reared its ugly head on a lot of occasions so far this season. But tonight is when it really came back to haunt us. I don't know what he was doing. It's almost like he literally just told himself, you know what? I really feel like turning into Bozo the Clown just for a moment here. Hopefully it doesn't cost us. Well, I don't know what he was doing. He was absolutely just daydreaming. And he's cost us tonight, unfortunately, Paul Izzo, which is a shame because it undid a lot of hard work from us tonight. Like I said, please feel free to comment, share your thoughts, ask any questions you've got about the game. Now, the other talking point for me tonight, we saw the introduction of Geordie Thomason, and it was quite a sensational one in all the ways that we'd rather not have. Firstly, it's his first game, and it's important that we do remember that it's his first game. But what concerns me most is that it really did look like he was thrown in there after being in Australia for about a week, because he was absolutely all over the place. One of the worst debuts I've ever seen from someone in an Adelaide United kit. I'm going to take you back to season 2011. Rinnie Coolen was the manager, and he brought Andwell Slorry from Holland. And he told us all that when he signed Andwell Slorry, that Andwell Slorry was amazingly quick and he was going to be better than Matthew Leckie at the time. Well, if you don't recall very well, Andwell Slorry had a nightmare of a debut, and he basically never recovered since. And I think we can all pretty much agree, since Andwell Slorry's debut, the Dutch guy that Rinnie Coolen bought, we always thought to ourselves, surely there'll never be a Dutch player in Adelaide United's history again that'll have quite an ordinary debut. Well, Thomason tonight said, you know what, Mr. Slorry, hold my fucking Heineken, because tonight, holy shit, some of those first touches were literally going out onto the MCG museum. And what I didn't quite understand and found amazing was that within the last 5 or 10 minutes, Marco Kurz actually dragged George Blackwood instead of Thomason, who was having an embarrassing day out. Let's be honest. I'm embarrassed for him that a whole bunch of pay TV subscribers have watched him tonight, because it was an embarrassing debut. Is this guy a professional footballer from Holland, or is he a student that's on a 6-month exchange? Wow. Let's hope it gets better for him. It can only get better after tonight. Oh my God. But look, he had one or two decent moments. He did hold the ball up at times quite decently, but I mean, we need to just erase this one from our memory because that was a really bad debut. Yeah, I think Craig Goodwin was massively consistent all game. I know I go on about him a lot, but it's because I genuinely believe he's the only attacking player Adelaide United have that literally has no flaws. He works so hard. There was a moment where he just gave everything he had to scramble back, put a challenge in, won the ball back, got the attack going again. You know, you don't see this from any of our other attackers. Just this relentless, consistent pressure that gets applied from Craig Goodwin. He does all the dirty stuff and the hard running, as well as the delightful attacking sequences that we build off of his boots. So, yeah, I thought Goodwin was fantastic tonight. Izzo with their equaliser. Did he need to play it back to Izzo in fairness to Paul, he didn't have a whole lot of time to think and he was under pressure, and we know that he doesn't particularly excel when he is put under pressure, so maybe not the best of decisions from Izzo to play the ball back in such a tight area when Melbourne City were applying the high press. It's a soft goal. It's a really, really soft goal. We're lucky not to actually go 1-0 down. Luke Bratton smashed one from 25 yards out, just flew past Jakobsen's boot and avoided going in, squeezing into the far post. Could have gone 1-0 down there, but, you know, people are going on about how it's a sort of courageous point earned on the road. Melbourne City are not that good, let's be fair. Like, they are really... If you go on the Melbourne City fan forums, the only thing you hear are people saying how miserable things are under Warren Joyce at the moment. So, you know, I mean, and then you look at McLaren, right? You know, Fox Sports blowing him up heaps after scoring their equaliser. You know, we gifted him that goal, and prior to him scoring that chance, we'd kept him pretty much in Elsie's back pocket, to be fair. McLaren didn't do a whole lot at all, and that's Australia's most favoured striker at the Asian Cup recently. So what does that tell you? I'm just going to read out some comments. So Marty Keogh says, lucky to get a draw tonight. Bozilica Bilic Miliuznic. Sorry if I've gotten that one wrong. He says, what's happened to Nikola Miliuznic? Well, it's being reported it was an ankle injury. Shocking scenes, really. He was crying. And usually, you know, touch wood, it's not as bad as what we might think it is. But when players do go down and hit the canvas and get stretched off with their elbow over their eyes, and they've got tears and you know, they look in real discomfort, it usually doesn't end up being a good prognosis. But yeah, we're hearing it's an ankle injury, so hopefully he can recover quick smart, because I think in fairness to Nikola Miliuznic, Ryan Kiddo's a downgrade, so I really hope that Miller can recover quickly enough, because obviously we have lost Ryan Halloran to injury. So, yeah, Miliuznic getting stretched off. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, that was sort of the catalyst to, excuse me, to us sort of just trying to see the game out as opposed to hitting City on the counter. So, yeah, Miliuznic played a real big role tonight, and to see him get injured like that is not good at all, particularly with Halloran out. That's really going to stretch our depth. Robbie DeRosa says, ha, 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 1-1. I know for a fact he's a Victory fan, so thanks for tuning in, Robbie, but I'm not going to take your comment all too seriously, particularly when I'm this salty after we bottled the game. Chris Sardidakis says, besides the injury we copped, Moroni should have come on before. I agree. I actually saw someone on the Adelaide United Facebook page when they put out the 1-1 result at full time say, what has Michael Moroni done wrong? I don't think he has done anything wrong. I think it's just a case of strain playing out of his skin week in, week out. He does make the odd mistake, Ryan Strain, but I just think he's got a lot more in his engine than Michael Moroney. Obviously, we know what Moroney does provide, and that's fantastic crosses when he does get forward. But I think Strain is just more than 90-minute player, and I think that's why Marco Kurz is tending to favour him week in, week out, as opposed to Michael Moroney, who looks like he's a stopgap. The other thing is, I think Michael Moroney's role in the squad now is just to be the third centre-back. After he played centre-half against Perth Glory, and given we didn't bring in a third centre-back when the transfer window shut, I think it's clearly become a case of, all right, Moroney now just becomes the third centre-back, and that's all he'll be relied upon for the rest of the season, unfortunately. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see a whole lot more of him, pending that both Elzy and Jakobsen get no suspensions or injuries. What I want to pose as a question, given that Mili Uznic looks to be in a bit of trouble, what do you do now with the team going into next week? Do you do what I think we should do, which is to, pardon me, to persist with Thomason? It's his first game, so we have to back him in. So start him again at 9 next week. Play Goodwin on the left and Blackwood on the right, because Blackwood did play out wide on a number of occasions when Baba Diawara has been fit in the past, and I don't think he's been awful there at all. I think he's clearly, he doesn't have the pace and like the quintessential characteristics that best suit wide players, but I think he can do a good job there, and I think you can't afford to not have George Blackwood starting week in, week out, just because of the height that he poses from set pieces. So, yeah, that's what my opinion is. What do you guys do to the starting team now next week? I think there needs to be a reshuffle, because that second half tonight was just probably not good enough. And we really threw two very, very, very important points away. We would have gone 5 points clear of City tonight. That's relieving a lot of pressure. Instead, we're still going to have them breathing up our necks, as well as Wellington Phoenix. So, and the other thing is Sydney dropped points this weekend, so we could have made up ground on Sydney, but not to be. Unfortunately, we end up coming out of the game with a 1-1 draw, which is pretty undeserved from a Melbourne City perspective, I think. George Karamidas says, can't be gifting teams goals for no reason. Ellis, not good enough. Yeah, hit the nail on the head. George Karamidas, coach of Adelaide Comets under-15s, knows what he's talking about. Chris Sadidakis says, next week match is a must-win. Yeah, so that's it's a home game against the Western Sydney Wanderers. They just beat Central Coast prior to our game tonight, so they're in a bit of form now. And we really struggled to draw against them last time out at Coopers. So, yeah, not the best of records against the Wanderers at home. Rebecca Reid says, huge congratulations to the travelling Red supporters. They were so loud on TV, drowned out City supporters. Come on, you Reds. You know what? I have to agree. It was quite audible listening to the Red Army and all those that travelled to Melbourne. Very, very good turnout for a City game. We know the victory turnouts at Amy Park from Adelaide United fans are always amazing, but for a pretty new rivalry, if you can call it that, against City, in a stadium that generally lacks atmosphere, very, 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 very solid work from all travelling supporters. Very proud that they are our own, and that in comparison to Melbourne City, whose fan base and main supporter base, the Melbournians, just disbanded recently, and they're just trying to come up with a new one now. The Red Army really showing them up. So I guess that's one positive to take out of tonight. George Kumitsis says, constrained play in Nicola's place. Probably not, because Strain can't really cross very well, I'm afraid. And I know Nicola doesn't always cross perfectly either, but tonight you saw how well he can cross. Ryan Strain's primary objective in this team is not to get forward and provide assists. It's just to provide run on the counter-attack, and how good he is at recovering that hole that gets left on that right side during the quick transitions against us. That's what Ryan Strain does best. So can he replace Nicola? as a right winger, I would say no. And we have seen him play at right wing, and he hasn't been great there. In fairness, so yeah, I don't think Kurz will do that. I think it'll be Kiddo, possibly Blackwood, or even Armiento has to be in the reckoning now after how good he was for that brief little stint against Brisbane Roar. Obviously provided the assist to Nikola Miljuznic last week, so young Armiento has to be in the frame as well. Matt Green says maybe United need to go down 3 goals in the first half more often. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I don't want to go to the elephant in the room, but and Dom Ronaldo did say this as well on my show just yesterday. In case you didn't watch, he said, you know, we got caught up in the whole hysteria in the second half last time out against Brisbane Roar, but would that have happened if we weren't playing against essentially a bank of 8, just parking it with the one goalkeeper, obviously, because that's all it was. They just invited constant pressure, and so you know, we just received an invitation to dominate the half, essentially, and that's what ended up sparking the comeback. You've got to ask the question, you know, would it have been a similar case if the Raw didn't have 2 sloppy send-offs against them last week? I don't want to take anything away from us because we were amazing, but you know, it is concerning that it took such a reaction last week. And you know, I mean, you can't say anything bad about certainly the first half and how we started tonight. It was pretty even half, and then you know, we definitely got on top towards the last 10-15 minutes of that first half with obviously the goal and probably 1 or 2 more good half chances created. Blackwood got one in the second half that you know, the ball just deflected back into him, and he was just too stationary, didn't quite have enough balance, and didn't quite get enough conviction on the strike, and it's just gone straight into Eugene's hands. But you know, aside from that, probably 1 or 2 other half chances that we created, but we really sat off in that second half. And even though the goal came in a very fortunate way for Melbourne City, it was pretty inevitable that they were going to equalise. And in some people's opinion, I know I'm biased, but certainly the entire Fox Sports team all seemed to have the opinion that Melbourne City should have won the game. So, you know, maybe if I was looking at this more objectively, I'd have the same view. But yeah, that's basically what I have to say in order to summarise tonight. Personally, I'm pretty crestfallen that we haven't won the game because I really feel like we needed to and should have done. I again have to stress that I don't think Melbourne City are a great team. Warren Joyce, just for me, is just the most unsexy football manager in the A-League since I don't know who. I can't. No immediate name springs to mind. But yeah, look, they're not a great football side. Let's be honest. And given that they've managed to throw away the likes of Bruno Fornaroli, Tim Cahill, Neil Kilkenny, and yet they're still in this position where they can jag a result against us when we've been very good tonight, goes to show that we really shot ourselves in the foot. Brenton Way says, so Margush needs to start. Look, I don't know. The talk is that Isaac Richards is the one that's actually sort of breathing down Izzo's neck, but both haven't accumulated many senior games at all. Margush is a talented goalkeeper, make no mistake about it. I'm not saying Paul Izzo needs to be dropped by any means. I'm just saying, why are we not seeing any evidence that his distribution might get better? Because, I mean, at this rate, it feels like it just never will. Like, are we just going to accept Paul Izzo being one-dimensional in the sense that he's just a good reactional keeper? You know, because 9 times out of 10, a professional goalkeeper's dealing with that back pass from Izzo. It's literally just sliced off the side of his boot and we've conceded from it, and it's not good enough. So for someone that has obvious ambitions to eventually leave the A-League and head overseas, that's not going to look good on his highlights reel at all. So I want to know what Frank Juric does. He's a new goalkeeping coach now after Peter Blazinčić retired about 2 years ago now. You know, what do they work on every week? Because, you know, and actually I've got to take you back to about 25 minutes before that moment, where the ball came to him. There was no pressure. There was no high line being played by City. And he still somehow managed to just boot the ball out and clearly miss every intended target. And we give the ball away. So not a great game from Paul Izzo at all. But it's not all on him. He's made a mistake, and we obviously want to support him as best we can because he's our number one goalkeeper, and he has proven that he has a lot of potential to eventually one day even get to sort of Eugene's level. Galekovic in goal for obviously the enemy tonight. Melbourne City, aka Adelaide United's reserves, or version 2, because of the amount of players over the years that we've lost to them. I mean, geez, Jamison, McGree coming on. It's just like far out. It would have been insult to injury if Riley McGree was the one to score, but luckily he didn't start, so his influence was halved. If you guys have any more comments or questions, now's the time to inbox or to put it into the thread in this video, and I'll address it immediately. Western Sydney to come next weekend. Big game tomorrow, Victory Glory. It's in Melbourne. Who comes away with a win there? Obviously, Tony Popovich's Perth absolutely flying. Victory not looking too bad either, but still without Honda. That's an important game. Victory with a very, very good chance to close the gap on Perth at the top of the table. I think we would be gunning for a draw as Adelaide fans, but I think tonight probably, without trying to sound too negative, shows that we probably just don't have it in us to go that extra bit further this season because without being under a massive amount of duress, we threw away 2 very, very important points against an opposition that I genuinely believe we played better than without probably having as good of a team on paper. So, yeah, pretty unfathomable to think that we ended up throwing 2 points away tonight, but that's what I believe. If you disagree, please feel free to make that public and comment in the thread. Otherwise, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back on the couch next week with a very special guest. Going to announce it within the next few days, but it's a very, very important Adelaide United person, and I'm delighted that he'll be coming into the studio. Also, don't mind the England top. I don't know why I'm wearing an England top. I have no affinity to England whatsoever. I think it's just because I'm a Liverpool fan and I love Gerrard, and this is sort of the golden era of England, 2006 World Cup. So that's why I'm wearing that kit. It should be an Adelaide kit that I'm wearing. I apologise. I think it's because I went out for a run without giving a shit about this top and, forgot to change. So forgive me for that. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure as always. Oh, we've got another comment that's come in. Brenton Way says, so when Eugene was injured a while ago, Margush was a measured replacement. Izzo was not even a great pick in the youth league days. So are you against Paul Izzo, Brenton? I'm trying to get an understanding of where you're coming from. Because Mark Gush is still not anywhere near as experienced. He might have made his debut for the senior team in that game where we beat Newcastle all the way back in 2014, 7-1 or something like that. And Josip Gombau just started making ridiculous substitutions and basically just threw Margush in so that he could get his debut. I don't believe since then that he's had a whole lot of senior team appearances. So if you're suggesting that Margush comes straight in now, I'm not entirely sure about that. We can't forget about all the good things that Paul Izzo has done this season. He's made a lot of clutch saves in big moments. It's just the other side of his game that lets him down, and unfortunately tonight let the entire team down. It's been creeping in a lot this season. We've seen some pretty rash decision making on his part where he's just sort of scrambled the ball away in a pretty ordinary kind of fashion when we could have sort of built an attack. His distribution a lot of the time just isn't really up to scratch. Tonight, I don't know whether it was complete lack of concentration or whether he panicked, but whatever it wasn't good. And unfortunately, he will probably take the blame. But, I'm not making this a get your pitchforks out for Paul Izzo kind of thing, because, he's fine. And I'm happy to have him as a goalkeeper. There's no question about it. So don't be led into believing that I'm against Paul Izzo, because that's not the case at all. Unfortunately tonight, not his best work at all. Unless you've got any other comments, Brenton, if you want to just clarify where you're coming from, that would be nice, just so we can see exactly where you're coming from. Are you gunning for a Margush debut? Even Isaac Richards has made the bench a few times this season. Let us know. Other than that, guys, unless there's any other questions or comments, I am pretty much about to sign off. Just to recap, 1-1 away to City, unfortunately. It should have been a win for Adelaide United. And again, the most frustrating thing is that we just aren't consistent this year at all. Like, we win 2 games in a row for the first time this year. Put in a kind of performance that certainly warranted another 3 points tonight. But we just can't do it. I know what it is. Yeah, and what almost concerns me a little bit is the fact that the players just seemed kind of happy at the end. Like, we were just playing the ball around. There's 2 minutes left of stoppage time. Why isn't someone just hoofing the ball into the box? Why is there no urgency? I know Craig actually went down with a pulled muscle of some kind, and that kind of confused the players because they weren't sure whether they needed to put the ball out so that Michael Moroney could come onto the pitch or make the most of the little time that we had left to actually threaten the City goal. Whatever it was, the players just seemed to accept the draw before it was an official thing. And that kind of worries me a bit as well, because this was such a good opportunity to get another kind of snatch and grab that we've been doing all season and really put us in a promising position, because, of course, we know how important it is to finish in the top 4 if you can, as opposed to finishing 5th or 6th, because having that double chance means everything. So it's just a little bit disappointing, but I guess we do need to look at some positives. That's it from me, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Like I said, massive show coming up this week with a very, very special guest, very recognisable face on the couch with me to preview Western Sydney this coming weekend. No fan cams this week, obviously, because I'm not down in Melbourne, but there will be some fan cams on some away trips. Hopefully between now and the end of the season, I am trying to make that a thing, but we'll see where that goes. Other than that, guys, stay tuned for future videos. Make sure you like and share the page. And thanks so much for tuning in and providing all your thoughts and comments. Ellis Gelios signing off with Drawn 1-1 City. I'll see you guys soon. Thanks so much.